On the night of our wedding, my husband stepped out onto the balcony to take a strange phone call. Only moments later, my new sister-in-law burst into the room, her face as pale as a sheet. Her hands trembled as she shoved a thick stack of cash into my hands and whispered in a panic, "Emily, the back door. Run, now." In that instant, I knew my life as a new bride wasn't going to be a fairy tale. It was the beginning of a nightmare. The gentle melody of the love song my husband and I cherished most still drifted in from the living room. White rose petals were scattered across the soft fabric of our marital bed. Their sweet scent mingled with the aroma of scented candles, creating a breathtakingly romantic atmosphere. I sat there on the edge of the bed, my hands still shaking with happiness. The delicate silk of my nightgown brushed against my skin, a soft reminder that this was all real. I, an orphan who had worked as a preschool teacher since graduating, a woman with no remarkable background, had officially become the wife of Jack Davis, the brilliant young CEO of a renowned construction firm. He was the man I loved with all my heart. Our wedding, a lavish and splendid affair straight out of a storybook, had ended just hours ago. I could still vividly recall the moment Jack knelt to place the ring on my finger in front of hundreds of guests. He looked at me, his eyes sparkling with a love so sincere and passionate. "Emily," he had said, "thank you for coming into my life. From this day on, you will never be alone again. I promise to spend the rest of my life protecting and loving you." I'm look today. His words had brought tears to my eyes. In the 2 years we had dated, he was always this gentle, considerate, and thoughtful. He was the warm sun that had thawed my life, a life that had always been short on affection. I had once believed that having him was the greatest blessing heaven could bestow upon me. His family, a prestigious and powerful dynasty, had initially shown some reservations. His father, Mr. Arthur Davis, was an incredibly powerful man, the chairman of a massive construction conglomerate. He always wore a stern, cold expression. The first time we met, he simply looked me up and down and said nothing. His mother, Catherine, appeared gentler, but in her eyes, I could always sense an indescribable distance. Only Ashley, Jack's younger sister who was still in college, seemed friendly, but she was incredibly timid and fearful, especially in the presence of her father and brother. I had worried that I would never fit into such a family, but it was Jack who stood up for me. He told his entire family, "If it's not Emily, I won't marry anyone." His determination finally won them over. And this dream wedding was the ultimate proof of his love. I was lost in this stream of happy thoughts when Jack emerged from the bathroom, his hair still damp, a towel wrapped around his waist. He smiled, a smile that could melt my heart. "What are you thinking about, my love?" he asked, his voice a low, warm hum. He walked over and sat beside me, wrapping his arms around me from behind and placing a gentle kiss on my hair. "I still can't believe I'm your wife," I whispered, leaning my head against his shoulder. The happiness was so immense I could hardly believe it was real. Jack chuckled. "You'd better get used to it, silly. You're Mrs. Davis now." He turned me to face him, intending to give me a passionate kiss. But just then, his phone rang, shattering the romantic atmosphere. It was an unknown number, no name saved. Jack frowned slightly, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. He was about to ignore it, but the screen lit up again. "Probably an urgent matter with a partner. Wait for me a second, okay?" He gave me a light kiss on the forehead, then stood up and walked out to the balcony to answer the call. I sat there, smiling as I watched his strong back. But my smile slowly faded. I saw Jack's posture change completely. He turned his back to me, one hand in his pocket, the other holding the phone pressed tightly to his ear. His voice lowered, and I couldn't make out the words, but I saw his shoulders tense. The call lasted only about 2 minutes, but to me, it felt like an eternity. He hung up, but didn't come back inside immediately. He stood on the balcony, lighting a cigarette. The hazy white smoke enveloped him, obscuring his expression. But I could feel a new heaviness, a sudden wave of trouble that had just washed over him. I was about to get up and ask him what was wrong when bam! The door to our suite was thrown open from the outside. I jumped, startled, Ashley, my sister-in-law, rushed in like a whirlwind. Her hair was a mess, her face was drained of all color, and her eyes were wide with panic and terror. "Emily!" she gasped, pointing back towards the hallway before rushing to the door and bolting it shut. The dry, sharp sound of the lock clicking into place in the dead of night made my heart stop. "Ashley, what is it? What's wrong?" Before I could finish, she was at my side, grabbing my hand. Her skin was ice-cold and trembling violently. Without a word, she pressed something thick and heavy into my palm. I looked down. It was a thick stack of $100 bills held together by a rubber band. I was stunned. Where did this money come from? "What are you doing?" Ashley shook her head frantically, tears welling in her eyes. She leaned in close to my ear, her voice broken by fearful, choked sobs. "Don't ask anything. Take this money, I'm begging you. The back door, run now, and don't look back." Her final words, "Run now, and don't look back," pierced my mind like a shard of ice, freezing my entire body. The stack of cash in my hand suddenly felt incredibly heavy, searing like a hot coal. I stood there in the middle of our gorgeous suite, feeling like I was on the edge of a cliff. Run where? Why did I have to run? Jack, the husband I loved with all my heart, the man who had just exchanged sacred vows with me, what terrible secret was he hiding that would make his own sister this terrified? 1,000 questions exploded in my head, but my instincts told me I couldn't act rashly. I heard Jack's footsteps on the balcony begin to move. In a panic, I quickly shoved the stack of money under the thick comforter, hiding it in a corner near the foot of the bed. I pulled the covers over it, trying to make it look as natural as possible. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. Just as I finished, the balcony door slid open. Jack stepped inside, his face back to its usual calm, though his brow was slightly furrowed. "Who just came in here, honey?" I heard a loud noise. I flinched, forcing a weak smile that I knew looked more like a grimace. "Oh, it was just Ashley. I think she was just excited and wanted to tease us a bit. She left right away." It was a clumsy lie, but in that moment, it was the only thing I could do. I couldn't tell him that his sister had just given me a pile of money and told me to run away from him. Jack looked at me, a hint of suspicion in his eyes. "That girl, so grown up and still acts like a kid." He shook his head but didn't press the issue. He walked to the bed and sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my trembling shoulders. "Never mind her. Tonight is our night." The warmth from his body and his familiar, masculine scent enveloped me. I should have felt happy, safe, but instead I felt a bone-deep chill. His hand was warm, but the cash under the covers felt like a block of ice. His words were gentle, but Ashley's warning echoed in my ears. I sat stiffly in his embrace, my body rigid as a statue. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of the man I loved most. Jack seemed to sense my strangeness. He gently pushed me back to look at me, his voice filled with concern. "What's wrong, Emily? You don't look well. You're so pale." I quickly shook my head, avoiding his gaze. I think I'm just exhausted from today, all the greeting guests and being on my feet. I feel a little dizzy." It was the only excuse I could think of. Jack sighed, his eyes full of sympathy. "I'm sorry. I should have paid more attention to you. Here, lie down and get some rest. Your health is the most important thing." He gently helped me lie down and carefully tucked me in. He leaned down and placed a soft kiss on my forehead. "Sleep, my love. Let me worry about everything else." I closed my eyes, pretending to drift off to sleep. But inside my head, a storm was raging. I could feel Jack sitting there for a long time, his hand gently stroking my hair. This tender gesture, once something I yearned for, now made me shudder. After he was convinced I was asleep, he quietly stood up, turned off the bedside lamp, and moved to the armchair in the corner of the room. I peeked through my lashes and saw him sit there, silently lighting another cigarette. The flickering flame in the darkness illuminated his troubled face. He wasn't sleeping either. He had his own unspeakable secrets. My wedding night passed like that. I lay there, not daring to move, not daring to breathe too loudly. Beside me, the rose petals were beginning to wilt. beneath my back lay the mysterious stack of cash. And in the corner of the room, the man to whom I had just entrusted my life was lost in his own dark thoughts. I hadn't run. Love and curiosity kept me there. I had to stay. I had to find out the truth. No matter how cruel that truth was, I had to know what terrifying secret the man I loved and the family I was about to join were hiding. The next morning, when the first rays of sunlight crept through the curtains, Jack was no longer in the armchair. The room was unusually quiet, but I knew the storm had only just begun. Was my decision to stay a fatal mistake? I woke up feeling utterly exhausted, both physically and mentally. I had barely slept a wink. Every small noise in the hallway, every time Jack shifted in the armchair, had made me jump. I sat up and looked around the suite, still strewn with rose petals, my heart a tangled mess. The $20,000 was still under the comforter, a silent testament to the nightmare that had just begun. Jack was already up. When I went downstairs, he had breakfast ready, a lavish American-style meal that I loved, with sunny-side-up eggs, bacon, and a glass of fresh orange juice. He smiled brightly and pulled out a chair for me. "Morning, my love. Did you sleep well?" he asked, his voice as gentle as ever, as if nothing had happened. I looked at him, searching for any sign of abnormality on his perfect face, but there was none. He was the same Jack from yesterday, the same tender, thoughtful man I loved. Was it all a misunderstanding? Was Ashley just playing an extreme prank? But the image of her pale face and terrified eyes returned, extinguishing that fragile spark of hope. I forced a smile. "I slept wonderfully. Thank you for making breakfast." We ate in silence. It was a stark contrast to our usual peaceful mornings. This silence was heavy, suffocating, as if an invisible wall had sprung up between us. I didn't know what to say, and he seemed to be deliberately avoiding any real conversation. A little later, my mother-in-law, Catherine, came downstairs. She was wearing an elegant robe, her makeup light and tasteful. Seeing me, she offered a gentle smile. "Emily, you're up. Did you two sleep well last night?" I quickly stood up and greeted her politely. "Good morning, Mom." "Yes, we slept well." But I couldn't help but notice her eyes. As they swept over me, there was a strange glint, a look of scrutiny, of assessment, that I had never seen before. She sat at the table, took a delicate sip of tea, and turned to Jack with a playfully scolding tone. "My son is all grown up, but I still have to worry about him. Ashley came home last night with her eyes all swollen from crying. I kept asking, but she wouldn't say a word. Did you two bully her?" My heart skipped a beat. Ashley had gone home and cried. It certainly wasn't from joy. I glanced at Jack and saw a flicker of unease. He quickly waved his hand. "What are you talking about, Mom? She was just joking around. She was probably just tired. I'll call and give her a piece of my mind later." The exchange between mother and son was too seamless, too perfect. They were trying to pass off Ashley's bizarre behavior as a childish prank. They wanted me to believe it was nothing, but their very effort to cover it up only deepened my suspicion. Just then, Arthur Davis, my father-in-law, emerged from his study. He wore the same stern, cold expression as always. He sat down at the head of the table, picked up a newspaper, and didn't say a word, as if my presence in his house carried no weight at all. My first breakfast as a member of the Davis family took place in that strange atmosphere. Everyone acted normal, even exceptionally nice. But I felt like an outsider, a lamb surrounded by a pack of wolves in sheep's clothing. After breakfast, Jack said he had to go to the office to handle some urgent matters, promising to be back early to take me shopping. I just nodded, not asking any questions. The moment he left, I decided I had to find a way to talk to Ashley. I needed to know the reason behind her warning. I used the excuse of wanting to walk around the grounds for some fresh air, then found a secluded corner and called Ashley. Her phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again and again, only to be met with the same result. My anxiety grew. Had they forbidden her from contacting me? I wandered aimlessly through the vast grounds of the estate, my mind in turmoil. I walked past Ashley's room and saw that the door was closed. After a moment's hesitation, I knocked. There was no answer. I tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. I gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was empty. But on her desk, I saw an open notebook. Curiosity got the better of me. I walked closer. It was Ashley's journal. I knew reading someone's private thoughts was wrong, but at that moment, I had no other choice. I turned to the most recent entry. Ashley's handwriting was shaky and uneven, smudged in places by tears. What am I going to do? I can't let Emily suffer the same fate. Dad's crime, Jack's cowardice, it will all destroy her. But if I tell her, Dad will never forgive me. I'm so scared. This was all I could do. I hope she's smart enough to understand and get away. I'm so sorry, Emily. I'm so useless. Reading those words, my whole body trembled. The same fate. Dad's crime. Jack's cowardice. So, Jack wasn't the mastermind. He was just a coward. The truly terrifying one was Arthur Davis, my powerful and cold father-in-law. But what was the crime? What fate was I supposed to share? Why was it so horrible that it left Ashley in such a state of fear and despair? I was trying to read more when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Startled, I quickly placed the journal back where I found it, trying not to leave a trace, and slipped out of the room. My heart was racing. I had a new clue, but it only pulled me deeper into a darker, more frightening maze. The truth I was seeking seemed far more horrifying than anything I could have ever imagined. Did I have the courage to see this through to the end? After reading Ashley's terrified journal entry, my mind was in utter chaos. Dad's crime, the same fate. The phrases haunted me, weighing on my chest like a stone. The monster wasn't Jack, but Arthur. This brought a sliver of relief, but simultaneously planted a much greater fear in my heart. Confronting a husband might offer a chance, but confronting a powerful, ruthless father-in-law with a criminal past was like a lamb challenging a lion. I returned to my room and locked the door. I needed quiet to sort through my thoughts. I couldn't keep acting blindly. I needed a plan. I pulled out the $20,000 Ashley had given me. Looking at the crisp bills, I suddenly understood. This wasn't just money, it was Ashley's sacrifice. She had dared to take money from her family, to face danger, to give me a way out. I couldn't let her down. I made a decision. I wouldn't use this money to run. I would use it as a weapon, to fund my own investigation. I had to find out what the same fate meant. I had to know what crime Arthur Davis had committed. Only by discovering his weakness could I protect myself and perhaps save both Jack and Ashley from his grasp. But where to start? Ashley's phone was still unreachable. The journal was just a collection of vague, desperate cries. I felt like I was fumbling in the dark. I suddenly remembered that Jack worked in construction. His company was a subsidiary of his father's conglomerate, the Davis Group. The crime Ashley mentioned was likely related to their business dealings. I opened my laptop and started searching for information on the Davis Group. The internet was flooded with articles praising Arthur Davis's success, multi-billion-dollar real estate projects, high-profile philanthropic activities. He was portrayed as a brilliant entrepreneur, a benevolent philanthropist. There was not a single piece of negative information. This was impossible. A corporation of that size, operating in a field as competitive and complex as construction, couldn't be so perfectly clean. This excessive spotlessness was, in itself, suspicious. I decided to change my search terms. Instead of the Davis Group, I tried phrases like Davis Group construction accident and Davis construction scandal. This time, the results were different. After scrolling through pages of mainstream news with no luck, I found an old post on a small, local blog. It was published about 5 years ago, with the headline, "The Truth Buried at Liberty Heights." My heart stopped. Liberty Heights. I remembered Jack mentioning it once. It was one of the first projects he was involved with after college. I clicked on the article eagerly. The author, a self-proclaimed former construction engineer, recounted a horrific story. According to the post, a major scaffolding collapse had occurred at the Liberty Heights residential complex, a project developed by the Davis Group. The accident had killed one worker and injured several others. But what was shocking was that all information about the incident was mysteriously suppressed afterward. The press was forbidden from reporting on it. The victims and their families all received large settlements and were forced into silence. The article also raised questions about the project's quality, suggesting the collapse was caused by the developer intentionally using substandard materials to cut costs. The author concluded with a haunting question: how many more lives must be sacrificed for the greed of the wealthy? I read the article over and over, my body shaking. One person dead, many injured, all silenced with money. Dad's crime. Ashley's words echoed in my head. This had to be it. But how was Jack involved? Ashley had written about his cowardice. I scrolled down to the comments section, hoping for more clues. Most comments expressed outrage, but one, from an anonymous account, caught my eye. I know the truth. It wasn't just poor materials. The on-site supervisor that day was the chairman's own son. He was there. He saw everything, but he chose to stay silent. The chairman's son, the on-site supervisor, Jack. My world fell apart. So Jack didn't just know. He was directly responsible for overseeing the site. He had seen his father's deceit, his crime. But he had chosen silence, chosen cowardice to protect his family. His silence had indirectly contributed to a man's death. I sat staring at the screen, tears streaming down my face. I cried for the unfortunate worker, for the buried truth, and for myself. The man I loved, the man I had entrusted my life to, carried such a dark secret. I now understood Catherine's distance, why Ashley wanted me to run. They knew Arthur's true nature, a man who would trample on human life to protect his interests, and they also knew Jack's cowardice. A man who didn't dare to stand up for justice once, would he dare to protect his wife when a storm hit? The phone call on our wedding night must have been from the victim's family, or someone else who knew the truth. They were threatening to reopen the case. Arthur was scared. Our wedding was probably just a sham, a facade he created to project an image of happiness, a bond to keep Jack under his control. Everything was becoming clear, but this truth was more bitter than any betrayal. What should I do now? Expose everything? That would mean sending Jack to prison. Stay silent and continue this marriage? I would have to live my entire life in a web of deceit, haunted by a crime. Just as I was at my most conflicted, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. My intuition screamed that something was wrong. Was it one of Arthur's men? Had they found out I was investigating? The insistent ringing of my phone pulled me from my chaotic thoughts. I stared at the unknown number on the screen, my heart pounding. Was it one of Arthur's men, calling to warn me off? I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves, and answered. Hello? I fought to keep my voice steady. The other end was silent for a few seconds, save for the sound of soft breathing. Then, a woman's voice, terrifyingly familiar, spoke. Emily? It's me, Catherine. It was my mother-in-law. I froze. Why was she calling me from a strange number at a time like this? Mom, is everything all right? I stammered. Catherine's voice was a rushed, fearful whisper. Emily, where are you? Are you alone? I have something very important to tell you. Don't let anyone know I called, especially your father-in-law. Her tone sent my anxiety skyrocketing. I rushed into the bedroom and locked the door. I'm home alone. Mom, what's going on? I can't say over the phone. Her voice trembled. Can you meet me? At the coffee shop, the Grind, over by the lake. I'll wait for you there. Please hurry. I don't have much time. She hung up before I could ask another question. I sat on the bed, my head spinning. Catherine, the woman who always seemed so gentle and submissive, was secretly calling me to meet in a public place. Something must be terribly wrong. Perhaps she couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to tell me the truth. Though I was scared, I knew this was an opportunity I couldn't miss. I quickly changed into simple clothes, told the housekeeper I had a quick errand to run, and took a cab to the meeting spot. The Grind was tucked away in a quiet corner. I saw Catherine already seated at a table in the back. She was wearing a dark coat, sunglasses, and a face mask, as if trying to disguise herself. I approached her and called out softly, "Mom?" She jumped, looking up at me before quickly pulling me into the seat across from her. "Sit down, dear. I'm sorry to trouble you." She removed her sunglasses and mask. I gasped. Her usually serene face was now gaunt, her eyes swollen and filled with exhaustion and fear. "Mom, are you okay? You look." She waved a hand, cutting me off. "I'm fine. Emily, you need to listen to me." She grasped my hand tightly. Her skin was freezing. "What Ashley told you that night, it's true. Don't marry Jack. Leave this family. Go as far away as you can." Even though I was prepared, hearing the confirmation from my mother-in-law's own lips felt like a vice squeezing my heart. Why? I found out a little about the accident at the Liberty Heights project. Is it because of that? At the mention of Liberty Heights, Catherine's face went white. She glanced around nervously, as if afraid of being overheard, before giving a trembling nod. "Yes. But it's so much worse than the rumors." She took a deep breath, steeling herself to confront a horrific memory. That year, it wasn't one man who died. It was 3. Arthur, to save money, used substandard materials. He knew the scaffolding could collapse at any moment, but he still forced the men to work. Jack, fresh out of college, was assigned as the supervisor. He discovered the fraud and argued with his father, but he was too young, too weak. He didn't dare to report it. Her voice broke, and tears streamed down her cheeks. And then the tragedy happened. The scaffolding fell. 3 lives were lost. Arthur used his money and power to silence everyone. He turned a triple homicide into a workplace accident. He bribed witnesses, falsified records, and Jack saw it all. He watched his father coldly give the orders to dispose of the evidence. From that day on, he's been living in hell, tormented by guilt. He became a prisoner to his own father. I sat in stunned silence, a roar in my ears. 3 lives. The number was a hammer blow to my skull. Arthur's cruelty was beyond anything I could have imagined. And Jack? He wasn't an accomplice. He was a victim, trapped by his father's sins. "So, the call on our wedding night?" I whispered. "It was from the family of one of the 3 victims," Catherine said. "They never gave up. They've been quietly investigating for 5 years. Recently, they found new evidence. They called to threaten Arthur, demanding an enormous sum of money, or they would expose everything." She continued. "He was terrified. Your wedding. He rushed it for that very reason. He wanted to use you, an orphan girl with no connections, as a hostage. He thinks that with a wife and a future family, Jack will be even less likely to resist. He'll use your happiness to chain Jack, to force him to keep quiet. Do you understand, Emily? You are just a pawn in his game." I couldn't cry anymore. The truth was so repulsive it froze my tears. I understood everything: Ashley's fear, Catherine's torment, and Jack's pitiful cowardice. I tried to reason with him, Catherine sobbed. I knelt and begged him to stop, to turn himself in so his conscience could be clear. But he wouldn't listen. He's become a monster. He said if anyone gets in his way, he won't show mercy, not even to me or his own children. She squeezed my hand, her eyes pleading. "Emily, I'm powerless. I can't protect you. I can only beg you. Run. Take that money and start a new life. Don't get pulled into this mire. If you stay, Arthur will never leave you in peace." I looked at the pitiful woman before me, my heart a chaotic mess. I pitied her, pitied the fate of a wife and mother forced to live with a demon. But what could I do? Run away? Leave Jack, Ashley, and her to face Arthur alone? No, I couldn't be a coward like that. A bold, determined thought sparked in my mind. If the law couldn't punish him, then I would. In this high-stakes game, could a small pawn like me turn the tables? The meeting with Catherine laid the entire horrifying truth bare. I returned home feeling like a ghost. The luxurious mansion I had once dreamed of as my home now seemed like a cold, gilded cage built on the blood and tears of innocent people. I was no longer afraid. In place of fear was a towering rage. I couldn't run. Running meant surrender. It meant allowing the crime to remain hidden and pushing the people I cared about deeper into danger. I had to stay. I had to fight. Even if I was alone, I had to try. I knew a direct confrontation with a cunning old fox like Arthur was suicide. I needed a plan, a smart, airtight plan. I needed evidence, irrefutable proof to bring him down. But where was it? The incident happened 5 years ago. Arthur had surely erased every trace. I remembered Catherine's words. The victims' families had found new evidence. What was it? I couldn't ask her. That would put her in danger. I had to find it myself. I decided to start right here, in this house. A cruel, paranoid man like Arthur would never fully trust anyone. He might still be holding on to something related to the case, a document, a piece of evidence as leverage over those involved. I began to secretly observe every corner of the mansion, especially Arthur's study, a sanctum so private that even Catherine wasn't allowed to enter freely. I needed a chance to get in there. The opportunity came that weekend. Arthur and Jack had a sudden business trip out of state. Catherine used the excuse of visiting relatives in the country. The vast mansion was left to just me and Ashley. I knew this was my chance. That night, after making sure the housekeeper was asleep, I went to Ashley's room. She was curled up on her bed, reading. She jumped when she saw me. "Emily? What is it?" Her voice was still laced with fear. I sat beside her and took her cold hand. "Ashley, I know everything. Your mom told me." At this, Ashley burst into tears, tears of pent-up fear and frustration. "I'm sorry. I didn't dare to tell you. I was so afraid of Dad." I pulled her into a comforting hug. "I don't blame you. You were incredibly brave. Ashley, I need your help now. We can't let him hurt anyone else. We have to stop him." Ashley looked up, her tear-filled eyes now holding a glimmer of hope. "Help? But what can we do?" "I need to get into your father's study. I believe he's hiding his secrets in there. Do you know how I can get in?" I asked. Ashley thought for a moment, then nodded. "He keeps a spare set of keys in a secret drawer under the family altar in the memorial room. But I'm scared. If he finds out..." "No one will find out," I said firmly. "We just have to be careful. Ashley, this is our only chance to free ourselves. Do you want to live in fear for the rest of your life? Do you want Jack to be his puppet forever?" My words struck a chord deep within her. She bit her lip and nodded. Guided by Ashley, we tiptoed down to the small, somber memorial room. It was quiet, and the faint scent of incense sent a chill down my spine. Ashley knelt, fumbled under the altar, and pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box. Inside was a set of metal keys. "This is it," she whispered. Our hands trembled as we took the keys and went to the study door. The heavy oak door stood silent, like a sleeping monster. I inserted the key. A dry click echoed in the night. The door swung open to reveal a large, luxurious, but cold space. The air smelled of old paper and cigar smoke. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating rows of tall file cabinets and a large steel safe in the corner. "We don't have much time," I told Ashley. "You stand guard outside. If you hear anything, give me a signal." Ashley nodded and hid in a corner of the hallway. I began my search. I went through drawers and files, finding only contracts and financial reports, nothing out of the ordinary. I approached the safe. It was secured with an electronic keypad. I felt a wave of despair. There was no way I could open it. I sank to the floor, feeling helpless. Was this all for nothing? I scanned the room one last time, desperate for a sliver of hope. My eyes landed on Arthur's desktop computer. It was in sleep mode. I gently touched the mouse. The screen lit up, asking for a password. I bit my lip, trying to guess. His birthday? The company's founding date? All wrong. Then I remembered, Arthur was an extremely patriarchal and arrogant man. To him, the most important thing wasn't his family, but himself and his career. I tried a combination of letters and numbers I suspected he would never forget. The date he received the CEO of the Year award from a major business magazine, an achievement he never tired of boasting about. Beep. The screen unlocked. My heart leaped into my throat. I was right. I frantically opened folders, searching for anything. And then I saw it. A folder named with the initials LH, Liberty Heights. My hands shaking, I clicked on it. Inside was a single file, a video file. Holding my breath, I pressed play. A grainy, blurry video appeared, filmed from a hidden corner, likely a security camera. I saw the image of the scaffolding slowly buckling, then collapsing. I heard screams, saw chaos, and then I saw him. Arthur Davis. He wasn't panicked. He was terrifyingly calm. He pulled out his phone and made a call. His cold, unmistakable voice came through the computer's speakers. "Clean it up. Leave no trace. Anyone who gets in the way. Eliminate them." The video ended, but his voice echoed in my head. I sat there, shaking uncontrollably. This was it, the smoking gun, irrefutable proof. Just then, I heard Ashley cough twice from the hallway, the warning signal. Startled, I quickly copied the video file onto a small USB drive I had brought, cleared the computer's history, and put everything back in its place. I rushed out of the study, and Ashley and I hurried back to my room. A few minutes later, I heard a car pull into the driveway. My heart stopped. Arthur was back, a day earlier than planned. Had he discovered something? The car engine cut out, followed by the heavy slam of a car door. Ashley and I froze in my room, our faces drained of blood. His sudden return couldn't be a coincidence. Did he suspect something? I quickly hid the USB drive deep in my pocket, my heart hammering against my ribs. We heard Arthur's heavy footsteps enter the house, then his booming voice, "Catherine, where is everyone?" Ashley and I looked at each other, terrified. We didn't dare go out. We could only stand still, holding our breath, listening. His footsteps grew closer, stopping right outside my door. Click. The doorknob turned, but I had locked the door from the inside. "Emily, open this door!" His voice was sharp and cold, all pretense gone. I trembled, unsure of what to do. If I opened the door, what would he do to me? If I didn't, would he break it down? Ashley was shaking beside me, whispering, "What do we do, Emily? He knows. He must know something." Just then, Jack's voice came from down the hall. "Dad, what's going on? Why are you back so suddenly?" Jack was home too. I heard Arthur snarl. "You have the nerve to ask? Your wife, your sister, what good deeds have they been up to behind my back? Get Emily out here. Now!" "Dad, calm down. She's tired. She's resting." Jack tried to de-escalate. Tired? Or up to something shady? Arthur wasn't listening. He pounded on my door. "Emily, I'm giving you 3 seconds to open this door. If you don't, you'll regret it." I knew I couldn't hide any longer. Taking a deep breath, I signaled for Ashley to step back, and I slowly unlocked the door. The moment it opened, Arthur stormed in. His eyes were bloodshot, glaring at me as if he wanted to tear me apart. You were in my study, weren't you?" I was paralyzed. He knew. How could he possibly know so fast? "What did you take?" he roared, advancing on me, his hand raised to strike. "Dad, don't!" Jack rushed in, standing between us. "Whatever it is, we can talk about it. Don't you dare touch her." "Get out of my way." Arthur shoved Jack aside. "This is between me and her. Today, I'm going to teach her some respect." He turned back to me, his voice a venomous hiss. "I'll ask you one last time. What did you take? Where is the USB drive? Give it to me." I stood my ground, my body trembling but my gaze locked on his. I knew if I handed over the USB, it would be the end for me, for any hope of justice. I clenched my hand around the drive in my pocket. "I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't been in your study." "Still denying it?" Arthur's face turned purple with rage. He swung his hand, but this time, it wasn't Jack who intervened. It was Ashley. She ran and stood in front of me, her arms spread wide, screaming through her tears. "Dad, don't hit her. It was me. I went into your study. I was just curious what it looked like. I didn't take anything." Both Jack and I were stunned by Ashley's courage. The timid, fearful girl was now standing up to protect me. Arthur froze, perhaps shocked that the daughter he always dismissed would dare to defy him. You too?" he stammered. "Yes, it was me," Ashley cried, tears streaming down her face. "You committed a crime. You ruined Jack's life. And now you want to hurt Emily too? Are you even human anymore?" "Shut your mouth!" Arthur roared, his rage reaching its peak. He lost control. He swung his arm, and a loud smack echoed through the room. The slap sent Ashley stumbling to the floor, a red mark blooming on her cheek, a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth. "Ashley!" Jack and I yelled in unison, rushing to help her up. Jack turned to his father, and for the first time, I saw genuine fury in his eyes. "You've gone too far." Arthur seemed to realize what he had done. He stood stunned for a moment, his hand still in the air, but regret was quickly replaced by cruelty. He laughed coldly. "You're all so brave, the three of you daring to stand against me. Fine, let's see how tough you really are." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Hello? Send some people to the mansion. Now. We have a few things to clean up." He hung up and looked at us with terrifying eyes. "You chose the path of death. Don't blame me for what comes next." I held Ashley close, a chill running through me. I knew the cleanup he mentioned wasn't about housekeeping. It was a death threat. A true life or death battle was about to unfold right here in this mansion. Could we possibly get out of here alive? Arthur's threat hung in the thick, cold air like a death sentence. I held Ashley tightly, my whole body shaking. Jack stood protectively in front of us, his face taut. The familiar fear was gone from his eyes, replaced by a fierce determination to protect us. "Dad, what are you planning to do? You can't do this." Jack's voice was low and dangerous. Arthur sneered, a sadistic smile on his face. "Do what?" "I'm just cleaning up the trash that dares to get in my way." "You brought this upon yourselves." He sat down in a large armchair, calmly lighting a cigar, like a king deciding the fate of rebels. A few minutes later, the front door opened. Two large men in black suits with grim faces walked in. They said nothing, merely bowing their heads to Arthur before standing like stone statues, their cold eyes sweeping over us. I knew these were the cleaners he had called. They were his enforcers, men who would do anything for money. The air in the living room became suffocating. Despair began to creep in. We were trapped in our own home, facing a monster and two hired killers. Where was our escape? "Dad, I'm begging you." Jack's voice dropped to a near plea. "This is my fault. I'll take full responsibility. Please, just let Emily and Ashley go. They're innocent." "Innocent?" Arthur blew a cloud of smoke. "No one is innocent in this world. Emily knows too much, and Ashley dared to betray me. They both deserve to pay the price." He gestured to his two henchmen. The men started moving towards us. My heart stopped. I looked at Jack, at Ashley. Maybe this was the last time we would ever be together. "Stop." A weak but commanding voice echoed from the staircase. All eyes turned. It was Catherine. She stood on the landing, gripping the railing, her face pale but her eyes blazing with a fire I had never seen before. "What do you think you're doing, Arthur? Are you going to murder your daughter-in-law and your own daughter in your house?" Catherine's voice was trembling but firm. Arthur seemed surprised by his wife's appearance and defiance. He frowned. "Go back to your room. This is none of your business." "None of my business?" Catherine let out a bitter laugh. "I've been silent for too long. I've turned a blind eye to your crimes for years. I've lived with guilt and torment every single day. But I will not be silent anymore. If you dare touch a single hair on our children's heads, I will go to the police. I will tell them everything." Catherine's words were a bomb detonating in the living room. Arthur was stunned, his face contorting. He had probably never imagined his gentle, submissive wife would one day stand up to him. You dare threaten me?" he roared. "Yes, I am threatening you," Catherine said, descending the stairs, each step slow but steady. "You think I know nothing? I know you falsified medical records for a victim's family member. I know you bribed officials to cover up safety violations. I have proof. I've copied everything." Catherine held up a small USB drive, identical to the one I had hidden in my pocket. Arthur was speechless. His final trump card, his wife's silence, was gone. The rage on his face slowly morphed into panic. He looked from Catherine to us, like a cornered animal. "All of you all betrayed me," he muttered. Seizing the moment of distraction, Jack signaled for me and Ashley to run. "Go!" he yelled, before charging at the two henchmen. A brawl erupted. Jack was no match for the two brutes, but he fought like a lion to protect his family. Ashley and I didn't hesitate. We grabbed Catherine's hand and bolted for the back door. "Get them!" I heard Arthur's crazed shout behind us. We ran for our lives into the yard, towards the back fence, but the gate was locked. "This way!" Catherine pointed to a section of the wall that wasn't too high, where a large tree grew close. "Climb!" We had no other choice. Catherine and Ashley scrambled over first. As I was about to climb, a hand grabbed my ankle and pulled me to the ground. It was one of the henchmen. He had caught up. "Go! Leave me!" I screamed to Ashley and Catherine. But just then, Jack lunged forward. He wrapped his arms around the goon's legs and bit down hard on his calf. The man roared in pain and let me go. "Go, Emily, hurry!" Jack yelled, his voice hoarse. I didn't dare look back. With tears streaming down my face, I used every ounce of strength I had to scale the wall and jump to the other side. I heard Jack cry out in pain, followed by silence. "Jack!" I screamed, about to climb back over, but Catherine and Ashley held me back. "We have to go, Emily. We have to call the police. It's the only way to save him." Catherine's words snapped me back to reality. She was right. We had to get help. We ran blindly into the night, not knowing where we were going, only that we had to survive, to bring Arthur's crimes to light and save Jack. Was he safe? Would we be too late? We ran frantically through the night, the darkness thick around us. The sound of our ragged breaths mingled with the wind whistling through the trees. I didn't dare look back, but Jack's cry of pain echoed in my mind. Tears streamed down my face, blurring the path ahead. "Mom, what do we do?" "Jack," I sobbed. Though terrified herself, Catherine tried to remain calm. She gripped my hand and Ashley's. "We can't cry now. We have to get to the nearest police station. It's our only hope." We were lucky to flag down a taxi on the deserted road. The driver looked hesitant at our disheveled state, but when we told him we needed to get to the police station urgently, he simply stepped on the gas. No one spoke during the ride. I clutched the USB drive in my pocket. This was everything Jack's life, and justice for the innocent victims. At the police station, we were led to a private room. A stern-faced captain listened as we quickly explained the situation. After I handed him my USB drive and Catherine presented hers, he reviewed the video and documents. His expression grew harder with every passing second. He picked up the phone and made a short, authoritative call. "All units, dispatched to the Davis estate on Ridge Road. Suspect is armed and likely to resist. Apprehend Arthur Davis and rescue the hostage." Hearing the word hostage felt like a knife twisting in my heart. All I could do was pray for Jack's safety. The wait at the station felt like an eternity. Every second was torture. The three of us could only huddle together, trembling and hoping. About an hour later, the captain returned, his expression slightly softer. "We have Mr. Davis and his 2 associates in custody. Your husband, Jack, has been rescued. He's been injured, but his life is not in danger. He's on his way to the hospital." Hearing this, all 3 of us burst into tears, tears of relief and gratitude. The captain looked at us, his voice low. "This is a very serious case, and we will conduct a thorough investigation. The evidence you've provided is invaluable. Thank you for your courage." We rushed to the hospital. Jack was lying in a bed, his head bandaged, and one arm in a cast. When he saw us, he managed a weak but warm smile. Are you okay?" That was the first thing he asked me. I couldn't hold back my tears and rushed to embrace him. "I'm okay. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have left you." "No," he whispered, stroking my hair. "You did the right thing. If it weren't for you, I might never have had the courage to escape that hell." Catherine and Ashley stood beside us, their eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, I felt like the 4 of us were a real family, one that had weathered a storm together. The arrest of Arthur Davis sent shockwaves through the business world and the entire city. No one could believe that the esteemed chairman, the successful entrepreneur, was a monster in disguise, responsible for a string of heinous crimes. From the Liberty Heights collapse years ago to other illegal dealings, everything was brought to light. The media swarmed the story. The Davis Group, an empire built on lies and blood, crumbled overnight. The investigation proceeded quickly. With irrefutable evidence, Arthur couldn't deny the charges. He was indicted on multiple counts, including corporate fraud, obstruction of justice, and, most seriously, conspiracy to commit murder. His 2 henchmen were also arrested and confessed everything. During the trial, an even more surprising fact emerged. The video I found wasn't the only copy. The former engineer who wrote the blog post was one of the survivors of the collapse. He had secretly kept a copy of the security footage all these years, waiting for the right moment. The phone call on my wedding night was made by him and the victims' families together. They didn't want money. They wanted justice. They had hoped to use fear to force Arthur into making a mistake. They never expected their actions would inadvertently accelerate my own search for the truth. A few weeks later, I received a letter from the old engineer. He wrote, "Thank you, brave young woman. Because of you, the souls of the departed can finally rest in peace. Justice may be delayed, but it is never denied." I read the letter with tears streaming down my face. I wasn't a hero. I was just an ordinary woman trying to protect love and what was right. Now that the storm had passed, I could finally feel a sense of peace, but I knew the fight wasn't over. Arthur's trial was about to begin, and we would have to confront the painful past once more. Would justice truly be served? The days leading up to Arthur Davis's trial were strange. The storm outside had calmed, but inside each of us, the emotional aftershocks remained. Jack slowly recovered. The cast came off his arm, but the scar on his forehead was a permanent reminder of the battle he had fought. He was much quieter than before. I'd often find him sitting alone on the porch late at night, smoking in silence, his gaze lost in the darkness. I knew he was fighting a harder battle now, a war with his own conscience. "Do you hate me, Emily?" he asked me one night, his voice hoarse. "Because of my cowardice, I almost got you killed." I sat beside him, taking his hand. I was angry, and I was disappointed. But I never hated you. I understand now. Your silence wasn't complicity. It was the powerlessness of a son turned into a tool by his own father. Jack looked at me, his eyes glistening. "Thank you. Without you, I'd still be that coward." Catherine had also changed profoundly. She was no longer the submissive, silent woman. She became strong, decisive. She took charge of the family's affairs while Jack recovered. She regularly visited the victims' families, not to beg for forgiveness, but to quietly offer practical help. "Money can't bring back a life," she said, "but I want to do something to atone, to give my own soul some peace." Gat it for a day. Ashley, too, had found her smile again. She was no longer timid or afraid. She started volunteering, helping people in need. "I want to live a meaningful life," she told me, "so I don't feel ashamed of what you and Jack did." Seeing their positive changes warmed my heart. Perhaps there was a silver lining after all. But just before the trial, we received bad news. Arthur's lawyer filed a motion for a psychiatric evaluation, claiming his client had acted in a state of diminished capacity due to extreme psychological distress. It was a clear tactic to reduce his sentence. That old fox was playing games until the very end. The news worried us greatly. If he succeeded, justice would not be fully served. "We can't let him get away with it that easily," I said during a meeting with our lawyer. The lawyer nodded. "I agree. We need more evidence proof that he was perfectly lucid and that his actions were premeditated." I suddenly remembered something Catherine had said. She had copied many of Arthur's documents, not just things related to Liberty Heights. I asked her about it. Catherine thought for a moment. "Yes, that's right. He had a black leather-bound journal he always kept locked. He wrote everything in it, appointments, secret payments, even his private thoughts. I saw it once but didn't dare read it closely. It might still be in the study." That very night, we decided to return to the mansion, this time with permission from the investigators. The house felt cold and desolate, stripped of its former grandeur. We went straight to the study. Everything was as it was, except the safe was now sealed with police tape. Catherine led us to a large bookshelf. She pressed on a false book spine, and a secret drawer clicked open. Inside was the black leather journal. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were pages filled with Arthur's neat, controlled handwriting. It wasn't a diary, it was a detailed blueprint of his crimes. He had chronicled every step, from how to cut costs on projects to how to silence witnesses and handle the victims' families. He had even recorded his thoughts about Jack and me. Jack is too soft. He needs to be tied down. The girl, Emily, an orphan with no connections, is the perfect choice, an easily controlled pawn. Reading that line, I couldn't stop the tears. To him, I was never a person, just a game piece. But the final page of the journal was the most horrifying. He had written, Plan B. If everything collapses, feigning insanity is the only way out. Psychiatric records have been prepared for some time. He had planned his escape route from the very beginning. The man's cunning and cruelty knew no bounds. This journal was the final, irrefutable piece of evidence we needed to dismantle his insanity plea. We immediately handed it over to the authorities. Now, all of Arthur's escape routes were cut off. The wheels of justice were turning, and there was nowhere left for him to hide. What sentence would he finally face for his crimes? The black leather journal was the fatal blow that demolished Arthur's feigned insanity defense. When our lawyer presented it in court, along with handwriting analysis, a hush fell over the courtroom. Arthur's own defense attorney could only lower his head, unable to offer any further argument. Arthur's arrogant, confident expression dissolved, replaced by a pasty gray pallor. He slumped in the defendant's chair, his eyes vacant. The cunning old fox had finally been unmasked, his monstrous calculations laid bare for all to see. The trial proceeded. After days of tearful testimony from the victims' families and the presentation of undeniable proof, the day of judgment arrived. Jack, Catherine, Ashley, and I were all present. We didn't sit in the section reserved for the defendant's family. We sat with the families of the victims. We wanted them to know we stood with them, with the truth. The presiding judge, a solemn, gray-haired man, began to read the verdict. His voice was steady and clear, echoing through the chamber. He listed Arthur's crimes one by one: fraud, racketeering, obstruction of justice, and finally, the gravest charge, murder. With each charge, I felt Jack's shoulders tremble beside me. As much as he hated what his father had done, the bond of a son is not so easily severed. After considering all evidence and testimony, the judge paused, the room holding its breath. This court finds the defendant, Arthur Davis, guilty on all counts. He is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The words hung in the air. Catherine let out a sob, collapsing against my shoulder. Ashley held her mother tightly. I stood frozen. I had wanted justice, wanted him to pay, but the finality of the sentence was still a shock. Jack sank into his seat, his head in his hands. I knew that even if Arthur was a monster, he was still his father. No son could watch his father be condemned for life without feeling a profound sense of loss. I sat beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder, offering silent support. Some pain is beyond words. As Arthur was led out of the courtroom, he passed by us. He paused for a second, looking at Jack, then at me. His eyes were no longer cruel or hateful. They were just empty. He said nothing, but gave a short, almost imperceptible nod. I couldn't decipher its meaning. Was it remorse? Resignation? I didn't know, and perhaps I never wanted to. Leaving the courthouse, a sudden downpour began to wash over the city, as if the sky itself were weeping, cleansing the world of its sins. We stood under the awning, watching the sheets of rain. The families of the victims stood in another corner. The old engineer, the one who had kept the video, walked over to us. He didn't offer thanks, just quietly extended his hand to Jack. "You were brave," he said. "Live a good life now." Jack nodded, unable to speak. The other family members approached, one by one. Their eyes no longer held hatred. The pain of their loss remained, but perhaps the verdict had soothed their desire for vengeance. They simply nodded at us before disappearing into the rain. The case was closed. A criminal empire had fallen. Justice had been served, but the echoes would remain forever. Our family had paid an immense price. a father and husband condemned to die in prison, a son forced to live with a lifetime of guilt and shame. But perhaps, in the wreckage, we had found something more valuable than money or status: truth and a clear conscience. The rain would eventually stop. After the storm, a rainbow might appear. Could our family, after navigating this horrific tempest, find the light of a new beginning? Arthur's life sentence marked a tragic end to an empire built on sin, but for our family, it was the start of a new chapter, one filled with the challenge of healing deep wounds. In the days after the trial, the Davis mansion became eerily quiet. Catherine was a shadow of her former self, locking herself in her room, refusing to eat. The pain of losing a husband, even a monstrous one, and the guilt of her own years of silence gnawed away at her. Jack was no better. He had to face the collapse of his family's legacy, the scornful looks of the world, and a future that was completely uncertain. The Davis Group's assets were frozen, its offices sealed. Overnight, the young, successful CEO had become the son of a convicted murderer, left with nothing but the heavy burden of the past. I knew this was when he needed me most. I didn't bring up the past or blame him for his cowardice. I was just there. I cooked simple meals, helped him sort through the remnants of their lives, and sat with him in silence when he didn't want to talk. "Jack," I told him, "we can earn back money. We don't need status. The important thing is that we're alive and we have each other. As long as you don't give up, I'll walk through this with you." My words seemed to give him a sliver of strength. He started to pull himself together. He came with me to the hospital to care for his mother. He began looking for work, even if it was just manual labor for minimum wage. He wanted to start over with his own two hands, free from his father's shadow. Ashley also matured immensely. She became the emotional pillar for her mother and brother, juggling her college classes with a part-time job to help out. Seeing their resilience, I felt a warmth spread through me. Perhaps in their loss, they had found a bond they never had before. But life was not easy. The stigma of being a criminal family followed us everywhere. Jack was rejected from every job he applied for. Ashley was shunned by her friends at school. Even when I tried to return to my preschool, I was met with whispers from parents who didn't want their children taught by someone connected to our family. I had to resign. It was a painful decision, but I couldn't let my presence harm the school. There were moments I felt hopeless. But then I would look at Jack, at Catherine and Ashley, and I knew I couldn't fall apart. I remembered the $20,000 Ashley had given me. I hadn't touched it. I gathered the family together. "We can't live in the shadows forever," I said. "Let's use this money to do something meaningful. Let's start over." They all agreed. We decided to sell the mansion, a place that held too many painful memories. We used the money to pay off debts and offer further compensation to those affected by Arthur's crimes. With the remaining sum and the $20,000, we didn't keep it for ourselves. We found the families of the 3 victims from the Liberty Heights collapse. We didn't ask for forgiveness. We simply used the money to establish a scholarship fund in the names of their lost loved ones, dedicated to helping underprivileged students in their hometowns. At first, our actions were met with suspicion, but over time, as they saw our sincerity, as they saw children from their communities going to college because of the fund, their attitudes began to soften. The old engineer came to see us one last time. "The pain will never disappear," he said, "but we see your genuine remorse. Live well." His simple words were an invaluable comfort. After settling our affairs, we decided to leave the city, a place that had given us false glory and taken so much away. We moved to a quiet, rural town, bought a small plot of land, and built a modest house. With his construction knowledge, Jack designed and built it himself. Catherine started a vegetable garden and raised chickens. Ashley transferred to a local college nearby, and I opened a small, free preschool class for the local children in our living room. Our new life was simple and lacked material wealth, but it was filled with peace and warmth. We were no longer living a lie, no longer haunted by the past. Every day, we felt the value of honest work and true family bonds. In this peaceful existence, while renovating an old house in the town, Jack discovered a hidden box inside a wall. It contained the diary and photos of a woman who had a secret love affair with a young Arthur Davis decades ago. It told the tragic story of how she became pregnant and, abandoned by Arthur and her own family, was forced to leave her newborn son on the steps of a local monastery. This new, devastating secret revealed that Jack had an older half-brother. Driven by a need to right another of their father's wrongs, we embarked on a search. Following the clues in the diary, we eventually found him, a kind, middle-aged schoolteacher named Michael, living a quiet life in a mountain town, unaware of his true parentage. The reunion was emotional and profound. We brought Michael home. Catherine, far from feeling betrayed, wept with sorrow for the life he had been denied and welcomed him with open arms. "From now on, this is your home too," she told him. The discovery of Michael felt like fate's way of offering a chance for healing. The sins of the father had torn a family apart, but from those ashes, a new, stronger family was being forged, built not on power and lies, but on compassion, forgiveness, and the quiet strength of rediscovered kinship. Life in the country flowed on. Our little house was always filled with the sounds of life. The tap of Jack's hammer from the small woodshop he built, Catherine's calls to her chickens, Ashley's cheerful chatter when she visited on weekends, and the joyful noise of the children in my class. One evening, as the family sat together on the porch, Jack suddenly stopped, then knelt before me. He held out not a diamond, but a simple ring he had woven from blades of tough grass from the garden. "Emily," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I failed to give you a proper wedding, a proper life. All I have now is my heart and my own 2 hands. Will you marry me again? A new start, with no lies, no secrets." Tears of pure happiness streamed down my face. I nodded, holding out my hand. The simple grass ring he slipped onto my finger was more precious to me than all the jewels in the world. It was a symbol of a love that had been tested by fire and had emerged stronger, a love that had navigated the darkest of storms to find a peaceful shore. We didn't need another ceremony. For us, every day we spent together was a celebration. Our story hadn't started as a fairy tale, and it had descended into a nightmare. But through the pain and the struggle, we had fought our way back to the light. We had lost a life of false luxury, but had found a happiness that was simple, true, and real. Looking at the man beside me, at the family smiling around us, I knew that after everything, peace was real.